Jonathan Menard from Deep Speed Media and Obvious Jim, James George. They're going to be doing some tricks that you're going to see. And some new experiments that emerged from the Art&Code conference that we had here that was all focused on artistic implications of 3D depth scanning and depth sensing. So how do I look from the side? All right, cool. Let's get started. First question. How would you define computer literacy, and what are the fundamental computer-related skills that most people should know? Okay, so I can't really advise most people, because I think one of the most interesting and wonderful things about life nowadays is that there are so many different computer programming environments, computer programming languages, that there really is something for everyone. Like, I can't wait till my 4-year-old, is a little older and then he can learn Scratch, for kids, which is great. And there's really specialized programming environments and languages for practically everyone. But if you're watching me now, you're probably a student in the media arts, let's say. Maybe you're an undergrad or a graduate student in a media arts program somewhere, and I definitely have some opinions about that. I teach media arts here at Carnegie Mellon, and I'm often interviewing people for jobs, maybe teaching media arts, and I do have a few opinions about what people should know. And I'm particularly concerned with computational media arts, where people are using the computer to make new kinds of software in order to make new kinds of experiences possible. Software is this kind of medium through which we're conducting our lives in new ways, and ever increasingly it's something it's a medium that I think people should be able to control. And if you're in the arts doing that, then I think you should know a text-based programming language like Java or Open Frameworks, which is really processing, let's say, or Open Frameworks, which is C++. I think you should know a patch-based programming language like Pure Data or MaxMSP or VVVV. I think you should know a microcontroller programming environment, which these days the de facto standard is the Arduino, which is a wonderful hacker tinkerer kit for making circuits. And I think people should know a web-based programming language, and that could mean something like PHP or Ruby on Rails, or if you're an old guy like me, Perl. And then I think there's a couple other accessory skills that are not exactly like programming, but are really useful today. Video editing, without a question, is really important. Every single person going through a university or university-like education, even high school, should really know how to communicate with video. It's tremendously important for communicating nowadays. And I mean, to a certain extent, people seem to understand this naturally. Their phones can record video, they can upload it to YouTube. It's not a big deal. And yet it still seems kind of shocking, like when my friend Matt Gray at Northeastern has first-year actor students learn to video edit. Like, well, of course they should be learning video edit. That's how, they have to learn how they're going to be chopped up. A second thing, which has never been easier to learn before until now, is 3D modeling. I think 2012 is really going to be the year of three-dimensional thinking, especially in terms of like printing stuff out with MakerBots and things like that. And with tools like SketchUp and other kinds of online, in the browser 3D modelers, it's never been easier. Although, of course, there's always more advanced tools like SolidWorks and so forth if you're up for it. Okay, Golan Levin here again. I have not seen many recent works of figurative computer art. Why does abstract art, computer art, dominate over figurative computer art? That's an interesting question. I happen to love abstraction. My mom is an abstract expressionist, and I think that abstraction has the capacity to kind of communicate in ways that go beyond language, and in ways that talk to us at a really low perceptual level. That really gets me excited. So I think abstraction is beautiful. You're asking about figurative computer art, and you mentioned a couple of my pieces: floccular portraits, segmentation, and system. And I think those two pieces you mentioned are actually really abstract. I think they deal with the concept of progressive abstraction. And for me, I perceive a continuum between abstraction and figuration. I see a place all along there where there's a lot of really interesting places to go that communicate with us in so many interesting ways. I was just looking today at the work by the Universal Everything folks, Matt Pike in particular, with those sort of fluffy characters he's got walking around. And these are hugely abstract to me at the same time that they're absolutely grounded in a kind of physiological logic that we understand as figuration. I also think there's different ways that things can be figurative. Things can be abstract visually, but figurative in terms of their kinetics. And I think that's a very exciting place to work. You see that with motion capture. It's a sort of interesting thing. So, I don't know. A lot of the earliest computer art was abstract because it was just easiest to draw circles and squares. Or actually, that was the only thing that was, that you could do. Nowadays, I think there's a really exciting range, and I definitely see figurative work. No, I don't just see abstract work out there. Okay. Next question. What's after Kinect? And there's a follow-up question to that, which is when will we see Kinect on our phones? And I think that's probably a partial answer to the first question. Um, First of all, I think that the answer to that is both easy and difficult. I'm not a prognosticator. I do think one should check out the science fiction for good answers, because usually that stuff is more correct than not. I do think that when I think about like what's after Connect, a lot of people might think like, what's the next hot new technology, and to a certain extent you can kind of get that from just by looking at the looking at the SIGGRAPH papers, looking at the papers from the different technical conferences, and there you can see the technologies. What happens is when these things become much cheaper or much smaller or much faster. Danny Ellis said that when something becomes 10 times smaller or 10 times faster, it becomes a completely different thing. It's likewise 10 times cheaper. When I think about what's after Connect, I don't think that the answer to that should be a technology, but rather a cultural idiom, and that's where you say because Connect has existed for a while in a variety of forms. I saw a 3DV depth cam called the Z cam, probably 5, 6, 7 years ago already, and there have been depth cameras for a while. It's what happens when these cameras become cheap and distributed throughout the culture that suddenly people have a new way of expressing themselves, new things to do with them. That happens there. What's after Connect? Certainly, it will be very interesting when they are in our phones, and I think you can probably see some of that now with the what's that camera called that can do the depth stuff? The which one? The Litro camera. That's exciting. Definitely, if you're interested in cameras, check out also everything that's going on at the Media Laboratory in the camera culture group there. It's really crazy stuff, really advanced and very interesting things happening there. And when cameras become sort of ubiquitous and super small and super cheap, then you'll start to see some of the sort of augmented reality things that you're gonna, you've been seeing mock-ups of or interesting artistic experiments of. The stuff I'm looking forward to is greater kinds of understanding of images and sound, frankly. I think we're almost there with speech understanding. I think that we are getting closer and closer with image understanding, and there's such great frontiers there. The fact that Jason Saragi just made the face tracker that is starting to show up in so many interesting places. These kinds of leaps towards better understanding what people are doing in spaces will make massive differences for how we can create new kinds of interactions and new kinds of artwork and new improvements to life through design. Okay. Do you think an open source approach to government is possible, desirable, likely? That's really interesting. Okay, I gotta say right off here, I'm not an expert in this. Okay, I really look as to folks like Jennifer Palka from Code for America and Julian Assange from WikiLeaks as sort of two opposite ends of the spectrum for how we can sort of open up governments to make them more transparent. I do think that open source government is possible. It is desirable. I think it's inevitable in some respects. And I think that one point about it is that I don't necessarily know if it's going to come from the governments themselves, which is why you see efforts like WikiLeaks or Code for America, which have very different objectives, but sort of are both grassroots operations in some respects, having the approaches that they do. I think that it's always going to come from outside of governments. And I also think there will always be parts of governments that are necessarily opaque. And that's possibly for the better if it's things like nuclear secrets or what have you. But for the most part, I really do hope, and I have a lot of admiration for both WikiLeaks and for Code for America in terms of their objectives of opening up governments and helping greater transparency happen. So this is a large multi-part question, which you can see on the Reddit. I'm going to kind of paraphrase it. The guy says, or person says, do you think the value of a high-priced, top-tier institution art degree has value? And I think broadly the multi-part question that was asked by a couple other people is just, in fact, generally, what's the value of a degree at all? And there's a lot of reasons why, one can question this. One can say, and the person or people do, they say, like, for example, like if you're learning about technology, like maybe the technologies you've learned are obsolete by the time you graduate, or maybe the old boy network or so forth that you would ordinarily use to justify a degree is maybe less valuable when the people who are doing the stuff you care about are connected over the network, the computer network, and not necessarily, in the same space as you. I've been thinking a lot about this, actually, and kind of wondering myself, critiquing the institution from the inside, what is the value of a degree, and how can a degree be valuable? I've been certainly looking at a number of resources that I sort of have put great questions in my own mind. You look at institutions like the Machine Project or the Public School in Los Angeles, which are doing fantastic work, completely extra-institutionally to allow people to learn things they want to learn. Or you can look at the phenomenon of badges and how they are like by Adafruit and these other kinds of things where it's like, I learned Connect hacking, or something like that, where it's that's the skill that you care about, and that's the skill that you feel proud to announce to the world that you have. But also there's some fantastic books now on the topic. Keo Stark has just got a Kickstarter secured where she's going to be working on a book which is all about alternatives to going back to school, like why you shouldn't or don't have to go back to school. It's awesome. And probably the book that kind of ruined my entire last year was Why Art Cannot Be Taught by James Elkins, which just lays it out, like why art cannot be taught. And that just kind of ruined me. I came into class thinking like, man, what's the point? Like you either got it or you ain't. But I'm an optimist again. I think that there's really something important to be had from being able to smell people. I think that there's really no substitute for being able to make friends and work with them in the same space. And even when I, have collaborators and colleagues and peers who are distributed all over the world, as I do right now, for example, with the Open Frameworks community or the Connect hacking community or whatever it might be, all of the really amazing energy gets brought to a focus when you bring them into the same place. For a hackathon or something like that. And it happens, right now when for example, I've brought James George here to collaborate with me and Jonathan Menard on the video you're seeing now. Like, when you bring people together to the same space, that's when the magic happens. And so I guess the value of a degree, I can't speak for the value of the piece of paper. What I can speak for the value of is really being in the same place with other people and working with them and learning together. Next question. Here we go. Let me move this up over here. Okay. So next question. I have a data set, this person writes, that is more than 400,000 responses from people where they rated something from 0 to 100. The people are divided into about 36 categories. How would you visualize a data set like this? Okay, sir, I want to say, first of all, I'm available for consulting. But if you'd like to try it on your own, my top recommendation would be to dump that stuff into Many Eyes, which is a really quick way of trying out lots of different visualizations over at IBM, which was made a couple years ago by Martin Wattenberg and Fernando Villegas. That's how I would try it out, because you just throw it in there, you'll be able to try out so many different things. You'll really, I think, have good luck. Maybe a stack graph will work for you, for example. And if that doesn't have the kind of flexibility you need, start tinkering around processing. Ben Fry, in his Visualizing Data book, gives a whole bunch of tools and suggestions for how you can get started checking that stuff out. Okay. What does that do? Is that messed up?
Reel it in. Bring it back in.
Yeah? All right, let's do another question. When computers surpass human intelligence, should we be scared or happy? This is, as Minsky said, how do you define intelligence? Computers have surpassed human intelligence if you just look at, if you say, like, how fast can they add numbers, right? I don't think that they're ever going to surpass intelligence the way we understand other humans, but other human intelligences. But I think they'll certainly fool us well enough that we can get, interesting work done. Ask Siri questions and things like that. Yeah, I don't think that the singularity is going to happen, but I could be wrong. Kurzweil could be right. I don't know. But the second question, though, here, What about a singularity without computer intelligence, like that proposed by Cory Doctorow? Well, there I agree. I actually think we're there already, or we're close to it. Kevin Kelly has a great video called The Next 5,000 Days of the Web, where he talks about that. And there you can definitely see the cumulative effects of, an internet, or a network rather, of millions of neurons. Kevin Kelly's observation is that the complexity of the entire sphere of connected computers is approximately right now on the order of the same size as a single human brain, and it is going to become very interesting when that becomes 100 million times more complicated, and that will be like the greatest network ever built, and certainly will be able to do some very interesting things. I think of it as kind of the world becoming one mind. I think it's beginning more like that than sort of the computers taking over and Skynet. But maybe I'm an optimist of sorts. Let's see if we're still, above water. Okay. The thing that I didn't say is like once you can have all of the human minds connected, what are they going to think about? Porn. It's not like we're going to have some kind of golden age of like massive intelligence. Shall we do another one?
Yeah, we're rolling.
All right. We're still rolling.
Yeah.
You got a whole bit you got?
No.
Oh.
Just the tail end.
All right. Where can I meet hot single robots who aren't just creepy people pretending to be robots on the internet? I was immediately thinking of the work of Hiroshi Ishiguro. Instead of making creepy people pretending to be robots, he makes creepy robots pretending to be people. But I actually think if you check out the work of Heather Knight, Marilyn Monroe, you'll see that she's got a cute little robot fella. I bet he's single. I think his name is Data. Check out her work with him. She might be able to hook you up.